On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers took care of business against the Philadelphia 76ers on Wednesday. We'll discuss that game in detail, breaking it all down for you here on Locked On Cavs. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
All right, the music you heard on the way in is from our friends at Astro Radio. Check them out on Apple Music or Spotify. I am Chris Manning. I cover the Cavs and the NBA at large for places like Diamond UPROXX and SB Nation's Fear the Sword. That man is Evan Dammarell. He is the proprietor of Write Down Euclid, also at fearthesword.com. All right, segment 1 today, our big takeaway from Cavs 76ers. Segment 2, we're going to give it our game awards. That's MVP, Stat of the Night, Play of the Night. And segment 3, we are going to touch on what JB Bickerstaff said pregame about Jared Allen and Mamadi Diakite, who did make a start in this game as the Cavs are a little banged up at the moment, and Diakite got a start. But Evan, I think the only place to actually start this show is that the Cavs, I think, coming out of that Toronto game, which was not a good performance, a tough loss for Cleveland, a loss Toronto, I think, largely controlled. The Cavs looked as energetic and as focused and complete as we have seen them. And if you're looking for a follow-up performance that kind of maybe helps you move on from that Toronto game, this is absolutely, in my mind, that performance.
I 100% agree. I think you could call it trickle-down Cavsonomics, with the main factor here being Evan Mobley. And I had asked JB, just with Evan Mobley's two-way performance, and we'll definitely flesh this out a lot more as the episode goes on, but I asked JB Bickerstaff about this post-game, and just more or less, like, was this one of the complete games the Cavs have played, or are they a step closer? And JB said they're a step closer towards playing like elite two-way game, their quote-unquote brand of Cavaliers basketball at the end of the day. But this was a good performance for the Cavs. Like you said, they looked like a completely different team compared to what they were against the Raptors. They were engaged or locked in. Like I said, trickle down Cavsonomics. I think Evan Mobley just kind of set the tone early. I think the defensive wrinkle the Cavs and adjustment they made to defend Joel Embiid throughout the night helped a lot too. But the Cavs made their focus stopping Joel Embiid because they're lacking Tyrese Maxey, they're lacking James Harden. This one Philadelphia is in. It's really just going to have an impact on how the season will go. And I think it also just shows you again, like, hey, the Cavs are kind of a force in the Eastern Conference still. They're just maybe figuring things out and finding their way a bit. And then tonight's just an example of them maybe finding their way a bit.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. I found just everything from the get-go to be just very effective, right? Like, I think for starters, you know, the strategy against Joel Embiid, who is 6 of 16, doesn't play a minute in the fourth quarter because this game just wasn't competitive at that point, was really sound. I mean, it's like they were not going to leave Evan Mobley on an island like they might have with Jared Allen to some degree, and they have in the past with Jared Allen to some degree. They had, you know, Mamadi Diakite helping onto Embiid a lot because he was defending PJ Tucker, who stands in the corner and doesn't move, right? Like, you kind of can game plan around that to some degree in terms of doubling Embiid. You know, and obviously it helps that you don't have the Harden Maxey stuff to deal with in this game as well. That absolutely kind of factors in there. I think just Darius Garland's passing, you know, Donovan Mitchell's pull-up shooting game, you know, Mobley as an offensive player, he's 8 of 10 in this game and just deadly efficient. Hit a really, you know, not even like, it's not a massive scoring high volume night. It's 16 points on 10 shots with no free throws, but like just a kind of a solid performance all around. Like, I don't think there was anyone, Evan, who played meaningful minutes for the Cavs who didn't give them something. Like, Okoro gave you something. I thought Lopez gave you something. I thought all the guys that played real minutes gave you something. And look, they just, I think you taking care of business like that is a sign of a team that was ready to go. That is a pretty solid team.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast, especially when you like look at the game against the Pistons the other night, where the Cavs are banged up, but like, this is a bad Pistons team that they had mollywopped the night a couple of weeks or days prior, like, when they had Jared Allen, just Evan Mobley kind of being the key figures there, and like, they struggled against the Pistons quite a bit. And this is a Pistons team without Cade Cunningham, and maybe you saw the first indication the Cavs may be playing down to a lesser opponent. And again, Philly has an MVP caliber player in Joel Embiid on the roster, but they're missing their two other key guys in James Harden and Tyrese Maxey. And sure, like Tobias Harris is a bit of a factor under Doc Rivers at times, but like he's kind of an albatross contract at the same venture as well, too, just with like when you break down the numbers. But the Cavs just effectively just again, they challenged and battled and frustrated Joel Embiid. You saw him kind of get lucky. He got held back from getting thrown out of the game even earlier, but like he was a factor. There was moments where he was playing angry. There was moments he was playing just like he was trying to play at an MVP level. But then you saw him kind of take his foot off the gas a little bit too, because I think the Cavs just continually kept needling him and frustrating him. And it's funny because Karis LeVert shared with the media post-game that this was a wrinkle the Cavs kind of deployed this morning during shoot-around when they're kind of game prepping for tonight's game against Philly. And I think, yeah, that is nature of just how the beast is in the NBA, but the fact that the Cavs are like, hey, we're going to start Mamadi Diakite instead of Isaac Okoro, who we started the 3 the other night against Toronto. And our game plan, more or less, is every time Joel Embiid is on the floor, we'll have Mamadi Diakite and one of either Robin Lopez or Evan Mobley, but mostly Evan Mobley, and constantly double and frustrate Embiid so he can't get easy looks at the basket. And it was effective. Like you said, he didn't play in the fourth quarter. He was kind of a non-factor in the second half and was dealing with a lot of just like issues. And I think it just had a bit of a trickle-down effect on the rest of how Philly played, because the Sixers just weren't able to get things going because they are very reliant on Joel Embiid being dominant on the interior or even as a shooter as well. But kudos to JB Bickerstaff. They planned for this game really well. I think keyed in for the fact that Doc Rivers doesn't want to make adjustments either, and kind of just maintain what was working and just rolled with it. And it was an effective strategy.
Let's touch on Karis LeVert a little bit here too, because he has had a run of games that he had the ankle injury and even a run of games before that where he looked out of sorts. He didn't play well against Toronto, just 2-9 from the field against the Raptors. I think really struggled to kind of find a rhythm in that game. Evan, this is the most in rhythm he has looked in some time. 8 of 11 from the field off the bench, 3-4 from 3, 3-4 from the free throw line, had 4 assists against 3 turnovers and 6 rebounds, 22-point game for LeVert. Look, he's going to be a guy, I think, all year that is probably, especially, Ricky Rubio comes back, he's going to be impacted by that. And he's a guy that has to find himself kind of off of these other guys and pick his spots and kind of get in a rhythm. But if you're going to get him to rebound a little bit after that kind of strugglesome Toronto game where that was his first game back and he didn't look good, if LeVert can settle in a little bit after this, that would obviously be a good thing. But good for him, and you feel for him to just kind of look a little more comfortable in this one than he has of late.
Yeah, and JB Bickerstaff said a lot of it was just him seeing the ball go in the basket, and it helped a lot too at the end of the day for Karis LeVert, but he is dealing with a lot of things. It's an ankle injury guy with a history of foot injuries and just a lot of health concerns across the board. Like we learned tonight, he's allergic to shrimp and misses it quite a bit. I can relate, I guess, but at the end of the day, he looks really effective out there. I think you're starting to see a little bit more of the vision of what JB Bickerstaff was hoping for, where like he is your super plus charged 6-man, where he's just given a lot more shot opportunities. And like, yeah, he is playing alongside one of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. And this is something we touched on the other day. We were talking about LeVert's struggles just in general, that the Cavs kind of found an effective strategy where they would deploy LeVert next to one of those ball handlers and let LeVert play within the flow of the offense, but sometimes also run set plays where it's just, hey, Karis, we're going to let you dribble, and just take the air out of the ball for the full 24 seconds and see if you can get a bucket in isolation or something like that. Like having a healthy balance and dichotomy, because like statistically speaking, Karis LeVert's like one of the most effective isolation scorers in the league this year. Like finding that balance and dichotomy and just kind of figuring out a way to make that all work for the Cavs is going to be key for them, especially when they're missing a lot of bench production, because we don't know when Kevin Love's going to be back. According to JB Bickerstaff, it's just like a comfort thing at this point, like him just feeling okay physically when just like dealing with the pain, because it's like along, if you're watching on video, it's like right along like the outer edge of your thumb. Like if the ball's constantly whacking that, it just hurts and it's going to mess up a lot of things. And during shoot around on Wednesday, he did have a wrap on his thumb still, so I would doubt Love's still available. So the Cavs need some type of bench production, and Karis LeVert's going to be that guy. It's better to get him comfortable both physically and just, in terms of just like a shot profile and within just like how things work functionally in offense too. Like that's just going to be key for them and going to help a lot when you bring Kevin Love back. So then you can possibly have 2 guys that are effective off the bench for you.
Yeah, and look, they need that stretching, and like again, Rubio will come back, and like maybe this team looks more complete when that happens. But we'll see where this goes, and we'll see how LeVert looks Friday against Orlando, and the next, and we'll see if he continues. But a positive moment for him at the very least. Okay, after the break, we're going to give out our game awards, dive deeper into the Cavs win over the 76ers. But first, Evan, you have a little ad read for us.
I sure do. Today's episode of Locked On Cavs is brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer to esports. They've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those on BetOnline as well. They are always the fastest and easiest way to get their betting fix, and so head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more. For instance, there will be a line for Cavs Magic up ahead of Friday's game, as well as game props. The Cavs are also minus 1,800 to make the playoffs, while Kevin Love is plus 2,500 to win Sixth Man of the Year. JB Bickerstaff is plus 1,000 to win Coach of the Year, and there's probably other odds out there too, defensive odds and things like that for Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. So go check them out today at betonline.net, where the game starts.
Back here on the Locked On Cavs podcast, Chris Manning, Evan Dammarell, your team every day. Evan, MVP. Who's your MVP for Cavs 76ers?
Evan Mobley, like I said, it's trickle-down Cavs-onomics on this one. Like, Evan Mobley set the tone on both ends of the floor, but was like paramount in slowing down and kind of frustrating Joel Embiid all throughout the night, and also defended really well while dealing with foul trouble. Like, he picked up his fourth foul midway into the third quarter and was very effective still against Embiid. I think, shots to Robin Lopez too, like that's why you bring him in, is to deal with these bigger bodies like guys like Embiid. And it's fair to question maybe Lopez's overall fit on this roster, but he was effective tonight too. But all hats and flowers go to Evan Mobley in this one, because he just kind of shut off the key component for the Sixers in this game.
Yeah, he was, I just think, had a sensational two-way performance. I think really one of the better two-way performances we have seen from him in a lot of ways. Just, I mean, stand out all around for him, just not really anything that you feel bad about. I mean, offensively, just what a good offensive performance from him, right? Just like, again, a lot of touch around the rim, a lot of dunks, but like had that really nice pull mid-range shot over Embiid that you're just like, wow. And then he had the Euro step, which I know we're going to talk about. Let's just go right into that. That's your play of the night. That Euro step was so smooth. He pushes the ball up the floor, and he reads that Embiid is going to try to take the charge, and he just Chris Burr bad Chris Burr impression. He whoops right around him, gets a layup, clean.
It was silky smooth. I think it was also cool to see him kind of wave off Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. He wanted to bring the ball up. Like, Mobley was calling his own number. That's what I was kind of talking about a few weeks ago, if you're a regular listener, where you were hoping Evan Mobley can kind of find a little bit of a selfish streak in him at times offensively and kind of call his number and get an easy bucket. And like you said, he read what the Sixers were doing on defense, more specifically Joel Embiid, and took advantage of the fact that Embiid really wasn't going to be playing serious defense, and Mobley blew right past him with a nice, very slick Euro step. And it's just really, really crazy to watch a 7-footer just move that fluidly like that and not really like turn any ankles or do anything like crazy. Just like looked very fluid, looked like a guard, like a very functional guard out there. And that was my play of the night by and far. And it was the Evan Mobley show tonight, especially against arguably the best, if or the second best big man in the league.
Mm-hmm. All right, my play of the night, end of the third quarter. This is Joel Embiid's really last play of the game. There's no Mobley on the court. They just collectively hound Joel Embiid at the rim to deny him a clean look. This was just a big old team up to defend him there, and you could just see Embiid, who had looked very annoyed a lot through this game, gets technical in this game, and had to be kind of like held back from his teammates from arguing even more in that moment. He just looked really annoyed and frustrated, and just like are these guys just really just coming at me over and over again? Can I just get like one look where I don't have to like just kind of barrel through and just go full monster mode and max and use all this energy? Can I just get like one easy bucket? And they just denied him. And like this was like just a great team example of what they did defensively to really start to really push him and make him work for his points in the paint. And then as like the little cherry on top of that Sunday, they go down the other end of the floor.
Monday. Tuesday, yes. Wednesday, shoot. Jeez.
Yeah, you don't know what day of the week it is, buddy. They go down the other end of the court, ball goes out of bounds. They have 1.8 seconds to run an ATO. They get Jetty a clean look where he darts in through the lane, gets a layup.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just he makes it. This was just like a really good end of the quarter. This game was just, you could pick a bunch of stuff, but this was just to me like really encapsulated like the really kind of complete run for the Cavs. Okay, let's go to stat of the night. I'm going to do a quick honorable mention one first, because Jetty Osman is now 8th all-time in made three-pointers for the Cleveland Cavaliers. He passed Danny Ferry with a 3 in this game. He's going to pass Wesley Pearson fairly soon and get even higher. It's just one of those funny things that because of the era, because Jetty's sneakily been around a little bit of time now, like he is just going to be on some of these lists. It's kind of funny. Darius Garland's like already top 10 in 3-pointers made for the Cavs, which is kind of funny considering it feels like he's been in the league for like not that long. But that's my honorable mention. Evan, my stat of the night, though, is...
1 second.
Yeah.
There's a very real shot that the Jetty could be top 5 in 3-pointers made for the Cavs by the end of the season. He needs to make 42 more to pass J.R. Smith for 5th all time.
Yeah. That's like going to probably happen.
Jetty Osman in the record books with Darius Garland 114 behind him. Okay,
so let's just do this really quick. You said how many is he behind J.R. Smith?
He is 42. Well, it's 41 technically to tie, 42 to pass. He's at 544 right now.
So they just played game 21. They play game 22 tonight, right? I believe on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So he's making 1.5 a game with 60-something games to go.
We'll just say 60. It's a clean 60. If he can maintain his pace, he'll make 93 pointers for the rest of the season.
He's going to pass J.R. Smith to be top 5 all time in 3-pointers made.
That's nuts.
It's hilarious.
It's just doing basic math on the podcast.
Yeah, tough for us at 11, almost 11:30. Okay, so my actual stat of the night, second quarter, when this game gets broken wide up open, they have 44 points. The 76ers only have 27. Cavs double them up in this quarter. If I were to tell you that would happen, I think you would say, oh, Mitchell and Garland probably went off. Mitchell had like a 20-point quarter or whatever, right? In this case, that was wrong. Cavs were 16 to 17 from the field in that quarter. Mitchell and Garland made a combined 3 of those 16 field goals and then 3 free throws for Mitchell. This was not just like 2 of your all-stars locked in, like scoring a ton. This was like a complete team just of evaceration of Philadelphia 76ers defense.
Yeah, and it's also worth noting that's the highest scoring quarter up to this point this season for Cleveland. Before that, it was 40 points in the fourth quarter against the Timberwolves, which they lost. But it's just nuts. Like the Cavs really just they beat up on the Sixers pretty hard tonight. And like again, there is a caveat of no Tyrese Maxey and James Harden, but like this was a definitive win for Cleveland. We're like, yeah, we're just gonna go around, mess around, have fun, and just like absolutely dominate the opponent from wire to wire. And just to kind of go hand in hand with that in terms of that domination, my stat tonight is the fact that the Cavs connected on 73% of their field goals in the first half, which is the most since they connected on 74.4 of them on January 8th, 2005 against the Knicks. So that's the highest field goal percentage the Cavs have ever had in an opening half in almost 20 years, 17 years right now. So that's just crazy. Like it was a highly efficient half for Cleveland, and that second quarter just was a masterclass on how to exploit a bad defense.
I'm pulling this up. I'm trying to pull this up really quick. Yeah, okay, I got the box score. Let's tell you who the starters were for this game. Cavs won 104-79 that night.
Jeez.
Here's the starting 5 for the Cleveland Cavaliers: Jeff McGinnis, Drew Gooden, Ira Newble, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, LeBron James. Coming off the bench: Anderson Varejao, Eric Snow, Sasha Pavlovich, Lucius Harris played 16 minutes, and Robert Tractor-Trailer played 14. For the Knicks, the starters: Stephon Marbury, Kurt Thomas, Allen Houston, Nazir Mohammed, and Tim Thomas. Trevor Ariza came off the bench for the Knicks in that game.
That's a name.
Yeah, he was in the league like last year. What a time. Okay.
That is LeBron hit his first 8 shots in that game and scored 22 points in the first quarter, just to further crystallize things. And then I don't think he scored for the remainder of the game. No, he did not.
But they spanked the Knicks. All right, that'll be it for our awards. We'll be right back after this for a little bit on Jared Allen, a little bit on Mamadi Diakite. But remind you, thanks again for making us your first listen every day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, back here on Locked On Cavs, Chris Manning, Evan Dammarell. Okay, Evan, tell us what... I have to grab my laptop charger. People on YouTube are going to see me do this because we're just going to keep rolling. but tell our listeners / viewers what was said about Jared Allen and his hip pregame.
So pregame to Wednesday's game against the Philadelphia 76ers, JB Bickerstaff was just asked about Jared Allen's availability after Allen was ruled out in this game. And Bickerstaff said that Allen is progressing slowly. It's kind of not what they're hoping to see, but like they're obviously going to be patient with him and do right by him. In terms of activity, they said Allen is kind of doing work in the pool right now in terms of just like keeping loose, keeping himself a little bit in shape when he can. Also, just like being in a pool helps with fluidity and movement. We had a listener kind of ask me on Twitter why the Cavs let him keep playing after he injured his back, but it's also interesting because they listed it as I believe a hip injury at first, and now it's a lower back contusion. So it's probably a myriad of things that Allen is dealing with, and I also just think when you replay that fall, it probably hurts a lot more the day after, and now it's just like how tender is it and how like serious. And like thankfully there's no structural damage. There has been no update at this time, so. Knock on wood that everything's okay, but Bickerstaff said he's progressing slowly. I think we're going to see a lot of Evan Mobley playing the 5, and I think JB Bickerstaff just kind of doing a revolving door of, at the 3 spot, whether it's Okoro, whether it's possibly Stevens, if Stevens does make a comeback, if it's even Mamadi Diakite as well, and then you see Dean Wade just kind of locking things down at the 4, and then you hope to bring back Kevin Love eventually as well. And in terms of injury updates too, JB Bickerstaff also did say, I believe after the game against Toronto, according to Chris Fedor at Cleveland.com, that Ricky Rubio is meeting with team doctors soon to kind of figure out the next steps in his recovery. So we'll kind of see what happens. The Cavs could be adding 2 players to the fold maybe before the end of the calendar year or maybe soon after if it's in Rubio's case.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting these guys healthy, I think getting as healthy as you can is just kind of the one of the defining stories of this team right now. Like, I mean, Diakite, who we'll talk about, like had a nice game. This wasn't like plan A to have Mamadi Diakite like start for you against the 76ers. Like, he's on a 2-way contract. And I know the sickos on Cavs Twitter love Mamadi Diakite, but like this is a 2-way guy. This is a guy that isn't locked into rotation, but you're down Lamar. Dean Wade's obviously missed some time. You're down Kevin Love. You're down Rubio, who was so vital to them last year, and I think they have high hopes when they get him back. Like, you have just a lot going on. And with Allen in particular, like, I think it's just like you wanted to see him be healthy because I think he has been just nicked up a little bit this whole time. And you could tell. I think he's obviously been very impactful, but I don't think he's hit that all-star level he was at last year. I think that's I feel pretty comfortable saying that he hasn't been quite as good as he was last season at his peak. Maybe some of that's kind of he's not scoring as much because Mitchell's around. He doesn't need to, whatever it is. But I am curious to see. I'm curious to see like how long he's ultimately out and kind of what it's going to be like for him ultimately.
Yeah, I am curious to see ultimately what he is, or what he is as a player. But like you said, he has looked a little bit off offensively. I think he's missing a little bit of that burst. I think the Cavs are trying to make sure they do right by him. Who knows? Maybe it's also the ankle injuries bothering him still too, because as JB Bickerstaff alluded to a couple of days ago, like this is an injury that Allen has been dealing with, in terms of the ankle injury, has been dealing with since the preseason, and they've just been kind of making sure like he's comfortable out there. And I just think he's been taking a lot of hits. I think the way the Cavs play, like we point out, like teams are very physical against Jared Allen. Like they hit him and bang him down low quite a bit, and that's just kind of the nature of how the Cavaliers operate defensively, where they funnel in a lot of opposition, a lot of pressure at the basket just to make sure, like, that's just how it works. And like Allen is more than able to handle the task, but like there is a physical toll on that. I think it doesn't cook you physically necessarily, but like you don't want to like burn him out so quickly because you're overtaxing him defensively, because it's a little bit of the inverse of like leaning so heavily on Darius Garland last year offensively. If you're leaning too heavily on Jared Allen defensively, his availability could come into question towards the end of the year, maybe when the Cavs need him most. And I was talking to someone prior to the game today. It was just like, hey, it's probably better for the Cavs to deal with these issues now in terms of like health and just like figuring out where they are lineup wise and rotation wise, and just like figuring out how they work on both ends of the floor, versus having to deal with this all at once at the end of the season like they did last year. Like, let us not forget their starting 5 of Garland, LeVert, I believe it was Markkanen, Mobley, Allen, didn't play together until the Hawks game in the play-in tournament, and that was like their idealized starting 5 before the Mitchell trade. Like the Cavs have been doing this tightrope walk with health issues for a while now, and they just kind of have to keep figuring it out as they go. And we'll see. I think I'd rather just err on the side of caution and just keep Allen out as long as you can and just make sure he's 100% physically right and then ease him back into things. Maybe not like let him play a full 35, 40 minutes right when he gets back.
Yeah, we'll see what that ultimately will look like. And look, I mean, he just took a really hard fall. Like sometimes that's just, you get a little unlucky injury wise. Evan, let's note two last things. Number one, another good Isaac Okoro game.
This was a very good Isaac Okoro game.
I'm just saying, he's playing well of late.
I asked JB Bickerstaff about this, if this is kind of what they're hoping to get from Isaac, and he's just like, yeah, you want Isaac to kind of maybe take his own shots every now and then, but kind of be comfortable within the flow of the offense. And you saw a lot of it, like Darius Garland connected them on a lob, and Darius just dismissed it as just another lob pass, but he'd rather get his teammates involved, and he knows Isaac's been struggling a little bit offensively this season, so maybe it's just like more positive momentum towards him having a solid game. But again, there's a reason why we talk about this on podcasts or people debate and not B and C about Isaac Okoro on Twitter.com versus being in the NBA front office, but I think he's going to be just fine. I don't think he's obviously going to be like a 11, 15 point scorer every night. Maybe 8 to 10 is realistically what we're saying here, but this is a very good game from Isaac Okoro, a very good two-way game. Like in terms of two-way notables, like Evan Mobley was great, but Isaac Okoro is just as good too.
Yeah, he just is playing, I think, more confident, more free, just kind of being a more impactful player in a way that I think is a really, really positive thing for him. All right, Evan, let's end on Mamdi Diakite.
Look, what everyone came here for.
Yeah, we've buried the lead deeply, but look, I think he played well. I think he played effortful. He is like a willing 3-point shooter from the corners and hit up one above the break. I think he is just like, look, he like may end up being like useful depth. I don't think he's like a rotation piece for the team. Like I think you need a lot more to see just kind of how he ends up playing to kind of see he's going to be that. But like he's better depth than like Dylan Windler. You know, like that's like abundantly clear. Like he is a guy in a two-way that I think you can use for things. If you can play him if you need to, you can figure it out with him if you need to a little bit. He played effortful, he played solid. You got what you needed out of him for this game, and I mean, like it wouldn't shock me if he like at times gets minutes when they need him to, or at some point, like they have this open roster spot. Maybe they don't fill it via free agency or something, and they just end up signing him to like a Kobe Altman special of some kind and go that way, and he's on the actual roster. Like that kind of stuff wouldn't shock me, but this was just like a good performance from him, and he's been obviously I think impressing since the preseason.
Yeah, he just is impressed with his high energy play. I think he is quite the personality. I think he's a fun guy to be around. Like my time around him at Charged Media Day, like he is very cognizant of who he was as a player. Like I asked him, like, what was your experience like playing with Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks winning a championship? He's like, I really didn't play. He's like, it's great. I have a championship ring. Like not many guys can say they have the triple crown in terms of just like winning a national title with UVA and then winning an NBA title soon after that, or I forget what the third one is, but either way, he's like, I didn't really play much. He's like, I want to show that I belong in this league. He's like, I want to show that I'm a very good defensive player. I play with a lot of energy, and he's like, I just more than anything else want to be that guy where I can hold dudes accountable and also just bring a lot of positive energy and a lot of laughs and just like things like that. And Karis LeVert was asked about that today. He's just Darius Garland was as well a little bit. It's just like Diakite is just like a fun, loving guy who like doesn't take things super seriously off the court, but when he's on the court, like he is one of those guys who is on a two-way contract. He is a guy who has been playing in the G League for the better part of his young NBA career, and like he is very cognizant of the fact that if he wants to make it in the NBA, it's like life or death for him every time he gets out on the floor. Like he is fighting for his basketball career, and like I think it's also just like he's not afraid of anyone either. Like he had mentioned like defending Joel Embiid actually to be in charge today. He's like, okay, great. You scored 2 points on him. You can do it again. He's like, I want you to keep doing it again and prove to me you can keep doing it, but I'm going to keep playing you just as hard. And like you saw him frustrate Embiid, but more than anything, like Evan Mobley picked up a foul, I believe, early or midway into the third quarter after just like a bad defensive attempt on Joel Embiid because Embiid got him the bite. Diakite was in Mobley's face and poking in his chest and yelling at him, telling him he can't be doing that and like things like that, and kind of coaching him up on the sidelines. And I think he's not similar as a player to Lamar Stevens because I feel comfortable with Diakite taking 3-pointers more than I do Stevens, and they're also physically just different as well, even though they kind of play similar positions to what the Cavs or skill sets to what the Cavs need. But he could be like one of those Lamar Stevens like players where you said like they signed him to a Kobe Altman special and then free up a two-way spot for another player. Whether that's Sam Merrill or Chandler Vaudrin or even D-Day Lauzuda with the Charge right now. But
yeah, Sharif Cooper would be someone considering some of the stuff he's done as well.
Yeah, Sharif Cooper is just a bucket getter, but that's all he really can do. But either way, you look at Diakite, and he could kind of be like that Stevens guy where like he's a bit of a dog, like he's willing to scrap, like he's going to war and knows like nothing's really guaranteed for him unless he keeps fighting. And I think he's going to just kind of be that guy who gives the Cavs a little bit of an edge. And yeah, he obviously isn't going to like jump off the stat sheet and score like 20 points a night, but like he had a good 6 points tonight. Like he had good 2 3-pointers. Like he was comfortable shooting those shots, but he was playing more within the flow of the offense, setting hard screens, and also, again, was key alongside Evan Mobley and just frustrating Joel Embiid throughout the night tonight. So like, hey, shouts to him. He played well. Yeah.
Did get a really, really good kick, a big kick out of like if you were watching like, and you don't see this on TV because of how the camera works, but if you're in an arena or like maybe you different camera angle on one of the broadcasts or whatever, when Joel Embiid, like when his team is shooting free throws, like goes to the other end, or like he just goes to the other end during free throws. So Mobley and Diakite were double marking him in these instances.
They're shadowing him.
Yeah, they would just like go down there and like be right with him, and like standing behind him is not to like give him any advantage. And that was kind of funny to watch. And also like Robin Lopez then would do that solo. Like Robin Lopez just like because he's just bigger. Would do that. Robin Lopez also attempted a over the head pass in this game that went out of bounds, and he had like a very delayed like kind of reaction. It just geeks me out.
I think it's funny when you just see stuff like that because apparently the Cavs have like some secret incentive where they want refs to call the 3 second violations because they had 3 second violations tonight. And just like kind of just like impose their will on the interior, and that's just kind of how the Cavs operate. This was a fun game for Cleveland, though. I think like just fun all around, like a lot of just impact from every guy. Like you said at the top, everyone who played minutes for the Cavs more or less had an impact in one way or another. And it may not stick out in the box score, but like if you watch this game, this was a wire-to-wire team win with the Stars obviously leading the way, but you got your role players to step up in a lot of key ways. It just kind of made this a very definitive win when you are dealing with a banged up Sixers team, but a Sixers team that still has a top 5 to 10 player in Joel Embiid and a possible MVP candidate in Joel Embiid on the roster.
Yeah, I mean we didn't even touch on the violations, but like that's like tells you a lot about what their strategy was and what they were going for. So that was all part of it for the night. Again, the Cavs win 113-85, take care of business against the Philadelphia 76ers. We will be back here on Locked On Cavs tomorrow doing part 2 of our awards. So we'll debate a bunch of new things, including Defensive Player of the Year, Bench Player of the Year, all this stuff and that and more on the next episode of Locked On Cavs to end the week. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. Please subscribe, rate, and review if you've not already. Talk to everyone tomorrow morning.